In League of Legends, not all champions are created equal. Some are going to absolutely thrive in the lower elos, while some will shine way more in the higher ranks. So this is why it can be tough to give a generic ranking of a champion's power, as their power level can shift drastically depending on the elo. So to filter out a lot of the noise, in this video we're going to be ranking the 5 best champions for each elo bracket. The low elo bracket is going to consist of the ranks Iron, Bronze, and Silver. For the mid elo bracket, we're going to have Gold, Plat, and Emerald, and then for the high elo bracket, it will consist of all ranks Diamond and above. But first, are you someone that suffers from acute hard-stuck syndrome? Symptoms include getting 13 kills and still losing, compulsive missing ping usage, tilt-induced mental boom, and an unshakable belief that next game will be different. Well, you're not alone. Countless players suffer from AHS every single season, but there is a cure! SkillCapped is the world's leading prescribed treatment for acute hard-stuck syndrome, and your treatment plan begins with our Season 16 Essentials. One course for every role split into easy and digestible chapters, with each one designed to walk you through every stage of the game from start to finish. From learning the exact trading and recall timers you need to win in lane, to mid-game decisions 99% of players get completely wrong, all the way to the teamfighting tips and tricks challengers abuse to always deal the highest damage possible. For more advanced cases, your treatment continues with our weekly challenger commentaries, where our specialists walk you through exactly how to carry in your elo on your chosen champion. And for our most severe patients, our world record jungle clears for every meta champion, with the exact routes, tips, and tricks our patients are abusing to clear faster than ever before. Side effects may include rapid LP gain, sudden loss of tilt, improved mental, and finally hitting your peak rank. Climb at least 5 divisions or your money back guarantee applies while actively using our service. And no, this is not a joke. Consult the exclusive discount link in the pinned comment or description below to begin your treatment today. So the best top lane champ that you can play for the lower elos right now is going to be Garen. We like Garen even more as of recent because players have discovered a new build that makes him even easier to succeed with. Ghostblade as a second item on Garen in place of Phantom Dancer is a really good alternative. You get the movement speed and a lot more burst potential relative to Phantom Dancer, so when you catch a target out, your ability to 100 or 0 them is super easy. And this is what makes Garen so powerful for the lower ranks. His combo takes no skill to use, but you literally just kill any squishy target in sight once you have 2 items. You're also pretty tanky without having to build any pure defensive items because of the durability from Garen's W, so it makes him so much more forgiving than the average fighter champ. For every champion you see in this video, if you are unsure as to what to build, then our new build site will help you out a ton. We can give you the recommended build for this patch right now, but things are always evolving, so every patch we're going to have the site updated by our challenger players with the most optimal builds for every meta champion. For Garen's build right now, look to rush Stridebreaker into Ghostblade second, and then the third item you can do a bunch of different things, as Voltaic is great for more damage, Deadman's for durability, and Mortal Reminder if the enemy team has heavy healing. In regards to the rune page, Storm Raider's Surge is going to work really well against matchups that have higher mobility or into ranged characters. Otherwise, Conqueror is most optimal into tanks or lower mobile comps. A jungler who every low elo jungle main should have in their champion pool right now is Rammus. Rammus just got indirectly buffed recently with Aftershock becoming stronger, and he's just all around a really easy champion to succeed with in the lower elos compared to high elo because of the popular champs we see played in the lower ranks. Because Rammus wants to rush Thornmail, he performs incredibly well into AD heavy enemy comps. In the higher ranks, you don't see these comps played as often, but in low elo, you will run into majority physical damage comps way more often. Master Yi play rate is way higher in low elo. Yasuo and Yone have much higher play rates, so there are so many better Rammus angles in Iron, Bronze, and Silver. Not only does Rammus hard counter those AD champs because of his armor stacking, but his point and click taunt renders them completely useless in mid-game teamfights. If a Yasuo or Master Yi try to dive in on your team, then you either just straight up E them if they are in range, or you use R to close the gap and then E to peel those champs off your carries. Rammus is also one of the best champions at capitalizing on numbers advantages. If you're a jungler in the low elo and you're playing Rammus, the easiest way for you to climb is to just look at the mini-map in the mid-game. If you notice that your team has more members nearby while the enemy team is off pushing a side wave, then engaging with Rammus and starting a fight when you have the numbers advantage will have you speed running out of low elo in no time. Your core build on Rammus consists of a Thornmail rush into Sunfire or Hollow Radiance second, while Jock Show or Deadman's works best third, and then Aftershock is your keystone rune. So our mid lane pick for low elo is going to be a more unconventional one who has just become meta over these past few patches, as it's Xin Zhao. Xin Zhao mid lane is incredibly powerful right now after Riot buffed his AP ratios in 26.9. You go for this AP bruiser setup that revolves around a Static Shiv Rush into Dusk and Dawn 2nd and Riftmaker 3rd. Static Shiv Rush on Xin Zhao is absolutely insane because he has a really cool synergy with the item to where when you proc the Chain Lightning effect on an enemy, you gain access to the bonus range on your E as if you landed W. So the use case for this is when the enemy is standing near the minion wave after you have Shiv, you just auto the wave, the Shiv energized proc hits the enemy who's standing near the wave, and then you can just instant E onto them from afar without even having to land your W. Xin Zhao mid is going to work especially well into more squishy and mobile champs because once you get on top of them, it's really hard for them to escape. You can take Storm Raider's Surge as your keystone rune to provide better sticking power, so Storm Raiders in combination with the knockup from Xin Q will have you right up next to your opponent at all times. In general, Xin Zhao as a champion is going to be really consistent for you in the low ranks because he doesn't really require a crazy amount of mechanical skill. Landing W is the only more difficult part of the champ's kit as your majority point and click damage coming from your autos. We also really like the pick right now due to the unfamiliarity factor. If the enemy has never played against a Xin Zhao mid before, then you can really exploit that, and it's pretty likely that they'll have little to no experience with the matchup due to the pick being so new. As much as we don't want to always recommend this champion as the best low elo ADC, we'd be lying if we said there was anyone better, so Misfortune continues to be the ADC you should spam if you're in the lower ranks. Smolder could have taken this spot in recent patches, but now that he's been nerfed, Misfortune is back to being the unanimous best low elo ADC. What makes Misfortune so great for the lower elos is that she's able to be impactful with way less mechanical skill required than the majority of other ADCs. You build full damage on MF, no attack speed at all, so your upfront damage from autos is great. You burst harder and don't need to be kiting around and auto-weaving immaculately to get the most out of her. Misfortune's R can do so much work in a team fight, and the skill required to use the spell isn't anything crazy. The most difficult part of playing MF is just going to be positioning in the correct spot so that you can get the highest value R off in a fight. You don't want to be too far back so that you're not in range to R, but you also don't want to be too close to where the enemy can just engage on you when you use the spell. So that's something you will just have to get used to as you get your reps in on the champ. For Misfortune's build, you have two different routes you can go. Into enemy comps that are majority squishy, you should be rushing Hubris, but if the enemy team is more bruiser or tank heavy, then Bloodthirster is a good alternative. And then First Strike should be your keystone rune. Press the attack isn't terrible by any means, but First Strike works better for the lower elos where games tend to last longer and you'll be getting more value out of First Strike gold stacking. So the best low elo support champion we highly recommend that you prioritize right now is Brand. Brand just got so much better in recent patches because of the new Rune Deathfire touch, and he's always been a great low elo support, so there's even more reason to recommend him now. You might be thinking, well, isn't Brand a very skill shot reliant champion? Wouldn't that disqualify him from being a good low elo pick? Well, the great part about Brand and what makes him a lot easier than most mages is the fact he rushes Rylai's as his first item. Rylai's passive will provide you with the slow when you land a spell, so what you can do with Brand in skirmishes is lead with your E, which is point and click to slow the enemy, and then it makes lining up his skill shots from Q and W extremely easy. Also, come mid to late game teamfights, a lot of your worth with Brand is just going to come from pressing R. It takes no skill at all to use Brand R in a fight, and if the enemy team is bunched up, it's going to put in a ton of work. These bunched up team fights are going to happen so much more often in the lower ranks as well, which gives Brand better value than if you played him in the higher ranks. Another reason we love Brand for low elo is because he's way less reliant on his ADC to win games. Brand can 100-0 the enemy ADC by himself when he has level 6, so if your ADC just so happens to not have any hands, then it's not going to matter as much when playing Brand as opposed to if you were playing an enchanter like Lulu or Janna. So as we make our way into the mid elo bracket, these are going to be the 5 best champions we recommend for the ranks Gold, Plat, and Emerald, and first up for top lane is going to be Kayle. So Kayle has been a phenomenal top lane carry all throughout Season 16, and she fits perfectly into this elo bracket. The reason we don't like her as much for ranks Silver and below is because you do need to have a decent amount of mechanical skill in order to pilot Kayle to a level where she's worth picking. A lot of your damage is coming from auto attacking, so positioning well and clicking around optimally is important, and that's something that players in Gold and above should be able to manage a lot better than players Silver and below. A lot of players who are stuck in this mid elo bracket just need to really hone in on their fundamentals in order to climb, and Kayle is one of the best champs at emphasizing that. Since Kayle spikes super hard with levels, farming up and being consistent with catching your side waves is really key to unlocking the champion's potential. You just cannot be constantly grouping and dropping side waves and expect to succeed with Kayle like you could on a tank, so keeping your CS scores high and playing for yourself is really important. Once you get to level 16 on Kayle, she has legit 1v5 carry potential, so even if your team isn't doing too well, there is always that late game insurance with the champ to where you know you've got a chance to win regardless of how terrible your team is. There are 2 unique build paths that you can run on Kayle right now, one with the Static Shiv Rush and one with a Nashor's Tooth Rush. Static Shiv Rush will be best for you in games where you don't think you'll be able to duel your opponent, so access to stronger wave clear so you can keep tempo in sides and farm up more efficiently is nice to have. Nashor's offers stronger damage potential, so if you're winning lane or know you can fight the enemy in the 1v1, 1v1, then it's the better pickup. So we honestly could have had this jungler as our low elo recommendation right now too. He's just that good, but slotting in for the mid elo bracket is going to be Nocturne. Noc has been far and away the most consistent jungler for solo queue lately, and we think he's such a good pick to spam if you want to find consistent success. Nocturne is a level 6 spiking jungler. He can still duel pretty well and make things happen pre-6, but the big spike is when that 6 comes in. Because of this, farming super efficiently and clearing your jungle as fast as possible is really key to unlocking the champion. The majority of Nocturne players in gold are only able to full clear their jungle in 2 minutes and 55 seconds, while our challenger junglers can get that down to 2 minutes and 42 seconds, which is a massive difference. So our jungle clear course, which features the optimal clear for all meta junglers, can really take you to the next level as a jungler. The Scuttle Crab is going to be spawning in at 2 minutes and 55 seconds. So if you're clearing in 2 minutes and 55 seconds, you are literally late to crab spawn, which can cost you a free kill early on. If you can clear in 2 minutes and 42 seconds and know the enemy jungler is pathing to the same side of the map as you, then you can wait in the brush for them to start attacking the crab, as Noc is really hard to beat in the 1v1 because of his spell shield and fear from E. The most important rule to live by when playing Nocturne, and when playing most junglers for that matter, is when your camps are up, you should not be skipping them to gank pre-6. Noc, especially because his early ganks are just so unreliable due to lacking a gap closer, so if the enemy still has flash, then you can end up wasting so much time ganking pre-6 and heavily delay your level 6 spike, which is where you can really begin impacting the game. Moving on over to the mid lane now, our mid elo recommendation is going to be Fizz. So Fizz has become a top tier mid lane pick over the recent patches because his staple rush item being Lichbane just got buffed. Fizz is now the best assassin mid laner that you can play for solo queue, and he slots in perfectly for this mid elo bracket. Fizz, when played in the higher elos, can be a bit more unreliable just because counter picks matter more, and with Lissandra being back in meta and Galio being a champ played a lot more in the higher ranks, blind picking Fizz becomes a bit more risky. In the mid elo bracket though, you see a lot less of Liss and Galio. For instance, they are Fizz's 5th and 9th most common matchups in ranks diamond and above, but only his 10th and 16th most common matchups in gold. To get the most out of Fizz, it's really important you understand how to play his first 3 levels. Fizz, before he has all 3 of his abilities unlocked, is a very weak champion. Especially if you're playing in a ranged matchup, it's vital that you don't get chunked greeting for CS prior to hitting 3. If you need to drop a few CS early on to preserve your health bar, then that's what you should do, as hitting 3 and still being healthy unlocks you to begin out trading your opponent heavily. Fizz's trade pattern, where he dives in with Q, procs electrocute, and then backs away with E, is one of the most broken and effective trading patterns for a melee champ. You chunk the enemy and then take very minimal damage in return, so it's key you are able to take advantage of this by being healthy when you reach level 3. For the build on Fizz, it's going to be Lichbane and Tizanias as your staple core for each game, while Electrocute is the optimal keystone rune. As we reach the mid-elo bracket for ADC, players tend to have pretty solid mechanics nowadays, so picking an ADC like Jinx, who requires more skill than Misfortune, is something to consider. Jinx is one of the best teamfight ADCs in the game, and she has some of the best pop-off potential because of her passive, so we don't like her quite as much for the high-elo bracket where games are more often decided in the first 20 minutes. Jinx on 3 items is an unstoppable force, and in this mid-elo bracket, you're going to be able to reach that item spike in the majority of your games if you're farming efficiently. Hex Optics Rush into Phantom Dancer 2nd and Infinity Edge 3rd is the core you will be taking in the majority of games. Something that is becoming more popular on Jinx in the higher elos that you can look to try right now is taking Doran's Bow for your starting item and then skipping Berserker's Greaves for Gluttonous Greaves. By going Doran's Bow, you get 15% attack speed, so it's not like you're losing the whole 25% by skipping Berserker's Greaves. It only becomes a 10% loss in attack speed in exchange for a ton more sustain. The sustain from Gluttonous Greaves can be so impactful in the mid to late game, allowing you to heal up off minion waves so you don't have to waste time recalling. One really important tip to stay cognizant of in the mid game with Jinx is not wasting your E. A lot of newbie Jinx players will just randomly toss their E out in skirmishes just for the sake of using the spell, but it literally has a 24-second cooldown, so you need to be very selective in how you're using it. If your teammates dive in and you can look to chain the CC with your E, then that's a great time to use it. Or if you're getting dove on by an enemy carry, then placing E down to self-peel is a great usage. Just don't use E for the sake of using it though. If you don't see a really good usage, then hold on to the spell, because once it's down, 24 seconds is a really long time until it comes back up. Melee engaged supports have just gotten a lot stronger due to the 26.11 item and rune changes, and one you should be spamming in the mid-elo bracket is Leona. What sets Leona apart from most other melee engaged supports is the fact she has a much longer catch range. Leona R is such a powerful tool for solo queue because it allows you to instantly punish mispositioning, and because of the range on Leona R, she never has to fully commit to a fight if her R doesn't land. If R hits and you get the stun, then you know that you can follow up with E and Q and chain CC the enemy for your team to follow up. With other supports like Rakan or Rel, when they engage, they need to be in melee range to CC their target. They can't start a fight from long range, so they are a lot more susceptible susceptible to failed engage plays if the enemy has flash, and they just react flash when you try to go in. If the enemy react flashes Leona R, then you just win out without even needing to put yourself in any danger. This non-committal type of engage that Leona has just makes her really reliable for solo queue, because if you land your CC, then you are guaranteed to follow up, but if you don't, then you're never forced into a bad position. The standard build for Leona consists of Locket as the rush item into Knight's Vow or Bandle Pipe second. You can swap between Celestial Opposition and Solstice Slay for the item upgrade, depending on if you want more tankiness from Celestial or more engage power from Solstice. And then for the Keystone rune, you should be taking Aftershock in every game because it just got a really nice buff. One of the best high elo top lane champions if piloted to her limits is Riven. Riven has the ability to completely take over games on her own and 1v5 fights if you can play her at a good mechanical level. This is why she's best suited for the high elo bracket, because if you aren't getting the most out of her kit, then there are just easier top laners who can provide more consistent results for you. Playing a Riven at an average level is nowhere near the same impact as playing a Malphite at an average level, so Diamond and above is where Riven is going to be the most optimal for solo queue, especially with the new meta build where you take Gluttonous Greaves, go Endless Hunger, and also take Death's Dance as core items. The skirmish potential of Riven and her sustain in fights is completely off the charts. Gluttonous Greaves are literally winning around 5% more than Lucidity Boots on Riven, so if you're still taking Lucidity Boots, look to make the swap over. Be sure to try out the new build of Umbral Glaive into Endless Hunger and Death's Dance. We just featured this setup in our OP builds video for 26.11, and it's become a lot stronger after the fact that Axiom Arc has been nerfed. A jungler who is still more on the underrated side, but who has been absolutely tearing up the higher elos as of late is Rek'Sai. So Rek'Sai is one of those champs who's always going to be more high elo skewed due to the fact that she's a more early to mid game reliant pick. If games go super late, then it's much harder to be impactful in a straight up 5v5 with Rek'Sai compared to many other junglers, so closing out games quickly and snowballing early on is really key to winning with Rek'Sai. In the higher elos, it's just a fact that games are shorter on average, so it's going to give Rek'Sai more strength than in the lower ranks. Players know how to snowball off the early game advantages that you give them much better in high elo, so it makes your early game presence with Rek'Sai a lot more rewarding. The reason Rek'Sai has become even stronger as of late is because of Hail of Blades getting buffed and coming back as a viable keystone for her. Hail of Blades just offers up more early game power than Conqueror does, so this ties into Rek'Sai's game plan extremely well, as her early game ganks are even more potent now. For the build, you have two rush options being Titanic Hydra and Stridebreaker. Into lesser mobile enemy comps, you should go Titanic Hydra, while into ranged comps or higher mobile champs, take Stridebreaker for better sticking power. So both of the mid lane picks for mid and high elo are currently Lichbane users, as the item buffs have given a lot of strength to these champs, as Twisted Fate is our recommendation for high elo. TF is always going to thrive more in the higher ranks where players have better macro knowledge and can play around the split push presence of Twisted Fate. In the lower ranks, it's harder to get the most out of Twisted Fate's R because oftentimes your team will just YOLO into a fight or get engaged on before you can even get a split push going, whereas in high elo, players will more often play around your R and wait for you to get the push before looking to play up. If you can work the side lane in the mid game with Twisted Fate and force the enemy to match you to collect the wave, then it opens up so many easy outnumbered fight opportunities for your team. This is how you're going to win with Twisted Fate. It's not through straight up 5v5 team fighting. It's through taking fights where you have the numbers advantage because the enemy is sitting in the side lane collecting the wave you just pushed in, giving you a free opportunity to R into a fight, making it a 5v4. Rod of Ages into Lichbane and Fire Cannon is going to be your core build in most games. However, you can look to swap Rod of Ages for Rocket Belt if the enemy team is more skill shot reliant. Let's say you're playing into Fizz, which is a pretty common matchup due to Fizz being a TF counter. That's where going Rocket Belt can work super well. You can use the Rocket Belt active as gap closer to dodge Fizz R and really limit the pick potential that Fizz has. So Ashe and Jinx are both currently the two ADCs that we rate the highest for solo queue, as they are up in the OP tier on the tier list, but we do think Jinx is a bit better for the mid elo bracket, whereas Ashe excels a bit more in the high elo bracket. The main reason for this is because Ashe is slightly more early to mid game dominant, whereas Jinx scales better into the late game. This early game dominance is going to be rewarded a lot more in high elo, where players can snowball leads better and close games out faster. Ashe has one of the best laning phases for any ADC because of her longer auto range and poke from W. With the recent addition of Doran's bow, her all-in power during lane is even better than before, so if you're paired with a melee engaged support, you've got the ability to follow up and score kills extremely well. Melee engaged supports just gained in relative power, while enchanters dropped off in 26.11 due to the item and rune changes, so this bodes really well for Ashe, as playing with melee engaged supports gives her so much more kill threat. For Ashe's core build, she runs the exact same setup as Jinx, with Hex Optics Rush into PD second and Infinity Edge third, followed by Lethal Tempo for the Keystone rune. And then for our high elo support recommendation, she is the best melee engaged support for the higher ranks right now, as we've got Rel. So Rel and Leona are both superb melee engaged supports, but we like Rel better for high elo because she is a bit more reliant on her team understanding the situation in order to get the most out of her. What we mean by this is that Rel is one of the best snap engages for any support, but the only issue with this is that if your teammates aren't on the same page and they don't realize the opportunity in front of them, you can look pretty silly flashing into fights and then getting nothing out of it if your team is just late to react. So playing with competent players who understand when a potential flash R play is coming up and then being in position to play off of that is key to getting the most out of Rel, and you just won't find that as often in the low and mid elo brackets. When playing someone like Leona, if you throw your R out, then your teammates have a bit more time to react to the play, and they don't need to be on the same page immediately in order for you to make engages work. With all this being said, when playing with competent teammates, Rel is arguably the best melee engage support due to her ability to reliably start fights. With flash available, you can't really mess up engaging with Rel unless the enemy is playing a heavy peel support like Alistar or Janna, who can just knock you out of a fight. For Rel's build, you should be taking Zeke's as the rush item into Locket second, while Celestial Opposition and Solstice Slay can be interchanged as item upgrades. And then for the Keystone Rune, it's going to be Aftershock in every single game. But while lists like these show you what to play, our brand new Season 16 Essentials courses for every role teach you how to win, each designed to walk you through every stage of the game from start to finish. From the exact trading and recall timers you need to win lane, to the mid-game macro decisions 99% of players get completely wrong, all the way to the team fighting tips and tricks challengers abuse to always deal the highest damage possible. Whether you're a top laner in the most unfavorable matchup possible, a mid laner having to deal with everybody in your lane 24/7, a jungler trying to balance ganking with farming, an ADC stuck trying to hard carry with a support who just exists to grief you, or a support that's struggling to carry games on your own, our Essentials courses are tailor-made to focus on the exact concepts that actually matter for climbing on your role in your elo. Check them out today, completely risk-free, using the link in the pinned comment or description below, as if you don't climb at least 5 divisions, you get every penny back. So there you have it, everyone. That's a complete look at 5 of the best champs for each elo bracket. Thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.